Welcome to the MathLinks Essentials Program Overview. Helping struggling learners and supporting their teachers is a passion for us. We hope that we can provide you with the information needed to accomplish your intervention goals. This session includes some of the structure and features of MathLinks Essentials. Please feel free to email us directly or go on our website for more information. The main feature of MathLinks Essentials is the 6 modules that address much of the major work of middle school. Additionally, regardless of the units you choose to support your students, Skill Boosters are a free skill routine that supports the backfilling of gaps that are left over mostly from elementary school. Also, free to all users is our collection of puzzles and games to add variety and motivation to practicing skills. Note that skill boosters and puzzles and games are not directly tied to the content in the modules and can be used in any way you think will support or engage your students. The program was designed using research known to help struggling learners catch up, and also years of practical experience working with many school districts. All 6 of these things we've learned from the mathematics intervention research are important to a program's success, so we incorporated them all. Many of the students we're focusing on can have difficulties memorizing procedures, rules, and formulas, so their brains crave meaning to understand and remember mathematical concepts. So of these 6 principles, maybe the most critical is to focus on conceptual development and then build in skills practice. This will show up in some of the examples we'll be sharing with you. Before we get too deep into things, we wanted to show you one quick example in the world of ratio and proportional relationships of how we might strategically use different representations to make concepts as accessible as possible. Making concepts more understandable through multiple representations is one of the hallmarks of our programs. In a moment, we'll look at a few examples from the modules, which include concept-based lessons, applications, engaging activities, and skills practice. But first, let's start with the module components. All resources are coordinated to make the teacher's preparation easier and student work productive. Each student packet contains about 30 pages of structured workspace for concept development, problem solving, and skills practice. Packets also include definitions and examples. This self-contained, manageable amount of work helps lead to student success. Let's take a quick look at an opening problem and review activity, and then some definitions and examples before we get to examples from the lessons. In the expressions and equation packet, this is an opening problem that gives students an opportunity to grapple with some algebraic ideas using multiple representations. Most likely, students will only take the problem so far, and then, after learning more concepts in the upcoming lessons, it's revisited and brought to its conclusion. Note that the answer key gives teachers an idea of what students might do, but all students may not necessarily write this much. Based on the Open Middle website, this review activity provides a lot of interesting practice in solving a variety of 8th grade level equations. Here are some definitions from the resource section in the back of a fraction packet and the word bank that's in the front of it. As words come up in context, teachers and students together unpack these definitions so that students can write something useful in the word bank. Maybe something in their own words, an example, or a picture. Additionally, the resource section has helpful explanations and examples. The teacher edition is available in print and on the teacher portal. In it, you'll find all the things you need to successfully implement the lessons and activities. Here are some of the features that are also available on the teacher portal. In a bit, we'll show you how you can use our slide decks to help guide instruction. if they fit into your teaching style. The front of every teacher edition has several pages of helpful unit planning information. Here's an example of an overview page in a proportional reasoning TE that gives you estimated times for lessons, review activities, assessment, and more. Materials you might need, and copies you may want to make as you prep the unit. Note that some of these are optional, and copy making is kept to a minimum. Extra problem sets and assessment options. Slide decks for guiding instruction. Note that these are all in Google Slide and PowerPoint. Technology activities that provide variety and extra practice. And other student, teacher, substitute, and parent resources. The content of MathLinks Essentials covers the major work of middle school, plus fractions, along with some whole number operations and decimal concepts. The order is flexible, so let's just start with fractions. The fraction module begins with fraction concepts in Packet 1, including comparing and ordering fractions and working with equivalents. Packet 2 is all about adding and subtracting fractions, relying heavily on visuals before moving to rules and procedures. Packet 3 does the same for fraction multiplication and division. Notice that in the examples here, we use pictures to make sense of fraction division. This helps students see the inverse relationship between multiplication and division, and we use it to arrive at a very useful alternative strategy that we call divide across. This is a well-known algorithm in other countries, such as China, but it's often an aha for our teachers and students alike. If you've never heard of or used divide across, please ask us for a demo or explanation. It's very accessible to students and actually makes a ton of sense. And it's great for students to see this before we get to the traditional multiply by the reciprocal algorithm. Next is numbers in base 10. Packet 1 addresses whole number multiplication and division at the upper elementary level and into 6th grade. Packet 2 is all about decimal concepts. And then Packet 3 is decimal operations. When we get to long division, rather than jumping headfirst into the standard algorithm, we start with a sense-making strategy that we refer to as chunking division. Here you see open and inviting structured workspace. In the TE, you see how students create a multiplication bank that helps them divide out chunks of any size until they arrive at the quotient. It's a great bridge to the next lesson, which gets to the standard algorithm. And know that there are slide decks and notes to support implementing the lesson. Here's an example of some of the notes for this division lesson, with thumbnails of the slides to help you keep track of things. Note that this isn't a script, but it does offer some good questions and helps you pace the lesson and decide what works best for you and your students. Now on to proportional reasoning. Packet 1 focuses on representations like tape diagrams, double number lines, and tables. These representations will help students develop multiplicative thinking. Packet 2 is all about making percent meaningful, using visuals and contexts to help students arrive at procedures. And Packet 3 is where students use the representations and strategies they've learned to solve problems. Here we see a problem from a proportional reasoning lesson that helps students transition from the visual double number line to setting up a proportion equation in a very logical way. Notice how the numbers and unknown within the double number line directly suggest the equation. Next, let's take a look at the integers module. Packet 1 introduces students to integer concepts using number lines and plus and minus counters. The focus of Packet 2 is integer addition and subtraction. And Packet 3 goes on to integer multiplication and division. Note that this module includes only integer values, not negative fractions or decimals, to build important concepts and get to the rules for operating on signed numbers. In these lessons, we use a counter model to help students understand the rules for operating on integers. This one slide from a deck located on the teacher portal demonstrates how the manipulative works for subtraction. We focus students on the numbers and operations they're using and help them with sentence frames to have an inner dialogue about the way they think through a problem. This eventually leads to students generating the rules for signed number operations. Next, let's look at expressions and equations. Packet 1 introduces students to variables, expressions, and equations using meaningful contexts. In Packet 2, students explore expressions and equations with cups and counters, which is an extension of the counter manipulative from integers. Then, in Packet 3, students move from building and drawing expressions and equations to formal algebraic procedures. This example is from one slide of a deck that demonstrates solving a 7th grade level equation using the cups and counters manipulative and a possible recording process. We build x plus 9 and 3 groups of x minus 2 on one side and negative 13 on the other side. If students already know the distributive property by now, great. If not, this process helps to support it. Now we notice 6 zero pairs, and clearly we have 4 x's and the 9 minus 6 equals 3 positives on the left, so the picture agrees with the algebraic steps. Sometimes, when things start to get messy, we like to redraw our picture. We notice that adding 3 negatives to both sides creates 3 zero pairs on the left. Notice how traditionally we might write minus 3 on both sides, but we record plus negative 3 on both sides because that's what we physically did. It's a nice discussion to have with students as a reminder of how subtracting 3 and adding negative 3 are equivalent. And we notice that what remains in the picture agrees with what's recorded. Now we simply divvy up the counters into the cups, which of course is recorded by dividing the same amount on both sides, and arrive at the solution. And we like students to check that solution, which, by the way, is good arithmetic practice too. It's important for many struggling learners to use manipulatives and visuals before doing procedures. And it's also important for teachers to help in the transition from the concrete to the abstract with lots of discussion and checking for understanding. The last module we'll address is linear functions. Packet 1 introduces some features of linear functions through meaningful contexts and multiple representations. In Packet 2, we formalize the meaning of slope and y-intercept using different representations and move on to the slope-intercept form of a line. In Packet 3, students learn to solve systems of linear equations graphically and algebraically and use these techniques to solve problems. The examples you see here are from the first functions student packet. As students grapple with the problems, they collect data in tables, display that data as graphs, and use equations and words to interpret and explain the data. Slide decks and lesson notes support teachers in lesson delivery as we create meaning for big ideas like rate of change and vertical intercept. We've spent most of our time today looking at the modules, but let's take a quick look at the skill boosters. Lack of fluency in elementary math is a barrier to success in middle school. Skill boosters allow you to systematically address below grade level number concepts throughout the year in a way that will not interfere with the learning of work being done in the modules. Let's look a bit closer. We provide a pretest to use as desired to determine whether your students might benefit from reviewing a particular concept. When you decide to forge ahead, we've got it all planned out for you. Here, for example, is a list of all of the fraction addition and subtraction topics. We recommend doing this process for about 5 minutes per day, so we provide these short problem sets that can be done as frequently as you like for as many days as needed. Each topic includes about 20 days worth of problems. Here's a snapshot of 4 days worth of problems. Most of them are fraction addition and subtraction, but sometimes we like to mix in other topics as well. Remember that there is a Word doc format, so they can be easily altered as desired. But like all of MathLinks Essentials, everything you need is right there for you. All of the units and all of the modules can be purchased separately, so you can mix and match them in a way that creates a program especially suited to your students' needs. Please look at the information and resources provided on our website, or simply contact us with questions or to get a closer look at the materials. Thanks for taking the time to learn about MathLinks Essentials.